So could you describe how was East Palestine? What did you see, and how was it for you?
It was like a war zone. It's something that I have never seen before. The media did not accurately describe this place. When I got there, I did not expect to get out of my car and be intoxicated by a smell that was going to make my eyes water and make me choke. When you have a place like that, you expect it to be not in the United States of America, which was quite disturbing. Luckily, we were able to create a story that was, exciting enough for the mainstream media to finally come down. But it took 24 hours, but still 13 days after the story should have been relevant.
What was the objective?
The objective was to make the voices heard of the folks on the ground, the residents, the people that are related to the residents. I mean, you have children, grandchildren, everything like that are relying on their government to tell them that it is safe to be in this area. But when the government tells them it's safe to be in the area, the next week they tell them, oh, well, you should drink bottled water. Okay, the damage is already done. You can't do it a week later. So, that's one of the biggest deals of this. You can't be lying to the people or misleading the people and then tell them later that, oh, well, we're going to backtrack on that. That's not what we meant.
Who's responsible for that?
The federal government, the state government. Mike DeWine, the governor of Pennsylvania or Ohio, told us last week that it was safe for residents to go back. Come this week, Wednesday, he tells the people that, oh, you shouldn't be using tap water. Maybe use bottled water instead. If you tell me my house is safe, I'm expecting to be able to go there and use my tap water without, being poisoned by chemicals. Okay? But when he tells me a week later to use tap water, that's not safe. My house is not safe at that point. Essentially, either they were totally incompetent or they lied. I don't know which one is worse.
And what do you think of the EPA? How was the reaction? Why was it so slow?
The EPA didn't even bother coming out for, they sent a few people out, right? The first 2 days that I was there, I didn't see anybody from the EPA. You saw people that had vests on that said the, Ohio EPA, the Pennsylvania EPA, they are state environmental protection agencies. The federal EPA is the one that has the budget, they have the resources, and they supposedly have the experience. In this case, they didn't bother showing up. They have a $12 billion a year budget, and they can't take care of the worst environmental disaster in the U.S. in the past, decade. What's up with that?
Do you think it's the Biden administration?
So the Biden administration didn't bother doing anything. I think they wanted to brush it under the rug. And the fact that they did was really discouraging for the people. They didn't want, the Biden administration wanted this to go away because if they could ignore it and they didn't have to send anybody out, as in the EPA administrator, which decided to come 13 days after the disaster actually happened, then they could potentially, get beyond it. The people might suffer, but at least it's not politically bad for the Biden administration. So, whether the argument is not whether the Trump administration would have done anything different, it's that the Biden administration didn't do anything at all. So I don't know what Trump would have done. It's what Biden did or did not do.
Like, who could be the one person you think would behave differently?
I think it's very important that to regain hope for the people of East Palestine would be to, the EPA admin should have come last week or right after the incident happened. If you would have brought Joe Biden, if you would have brought the 2 U.S. senators, all these people right after it happened, you would have, the community would have had hope, but they never had that until, us independent journalists actually got involved. And then you started getting a few mainstream journalists coming in, but they could have really done a lot of good for the community if they would have come in early. But it took us to force them to come in because it was going to be a political liability otherwise. Or else, they probably still wouldn't be there. They would be trying to brush it off.
So what does it have to do with?
It has to do with the idea that it's politics. The government does not want to admit that they messed up by blowing up this train. Let me just say, if this happened in the middle of Washington, D.C., they wouldn't have done that. They would not have blown this train up in the middle of Washington, D.C. So, and most viewers will understand that. And I think that is a very accurate point to make, that you had a small town that is not very wealthy, where they decided to go in and create a massive mushroom cloud of, toxic chemicals. So.
Do you think this will now happen like the ground of battle between Democrats and Republicans?
It should not, because this is not a partisan issue, and nobody there sees it as a partisan issue. Because you had both the Republican, Ohio has 2 U.S. senators. One's a Republican, one's a Democrat. Neither of them showed up until Wednesday of last week, 13 days after the explosion. So I don't think it has to do with Republican or Democrat. I think everybody, every party, every government, every local, state, and federal, they all messed up. So this is not partisan. This is the government in general not doing what they're supposed to do. If you have the president of the United States, say Joe Biden, getting involved in this situation, I mean, you think about the amount of money he has sent to Ukraine, right? We're talking over $100 billion. Okay, he has the ability to do that. He has the ability to send in, I mean, more money than this town has ever seen to fix this issue, to make sure that kids are safe, that they're breathing clean air, that we can fix it, we can fix the creeks, the streams, everything. And I think that no matter what Trump is doing, I know he's running for president and everything now, but I do think that having him go to the area is very important. Because you see, right after he announced, FEMA, which is a branch of the federal government controlled by the White House, all of a sudden, right after, they decided they were going to fund relief efforts. So is it a coincidence? I don't know. But, it did happen yesterday or Saturday.
That's an interesting connection to Ukraine you just made, that, the money should go somewhere else instead, like inside your country, right?
No, I didn't necessarily say that it should, but what my point is that, if we have $200 billion, okay, to spend on efforts anywhere, right? I'm not saying that we should divert money from Ukraine, but what I am saying is clearly there is more money. Even if you put 1% of that money, right? We take extra cash that was not originally going to Ukraine. I'm saying like 1% of the cash that has gone to Ukraine, clearly we have it, and send it to East Palestine. $1 billion for something like this would have gone a really long way. So, not saying divert it, but I'm saying clearly we have the cash.
Thank you. And, you were at the spot. What were the side effects of the disaster? And what health effects did they have?
Skin issues were a big thing. Nausea, migraines, such as that. I mean, there were people that had gotten to the point where they had migraines so bad that they were throwing up, which is, crazy. It's because of the chemical smell. And we don't know what the chemical smell is. It might be like super toxic, cancerous. We really don't know. And I wish we did soon, but even the EPA has not put out any significant report that would tell us whether or not it is cancerous, toxic, or anything else. My face is still swollen up from that, right? Like I can pull it back. It's not. But anyway, yeah. So it's bad, and it's kind of terrifying because I don't know what is doing it to me. I don't know what is wrecking my skin. I have no idea.
And they gave no warning, right?
No warning. They say that the air is clear. They say the water is clear. And we discovered the other day that clearly the water is not clean, not clear. Because we took a rock, threw it in the water. It turned the stream into a rainbow. And, you look on Twitter, we got 14-something million views on it. And the governor of Ohio responded to me directly on that video and said that they were going to look into it more. So I think that is the power of citizen journalists like you and me. And
Yeah, can you actually comment on the citizen journalism? It probably started with Elon Musk and Twitter. How do you feel about that?
that's the only reason I'm a journalist. Like, the power of Twitter is what, in my opinion, started this, right? I don't think the mainstream media, they had, before I got there, they had 13 days to do anything. But, we got there in the morning, we got millions of views on our tweets, which is, crazy. So hundreds of thousands of likes on my tweets. And then all of a sudden the next day you start seeing cameras show up. And I firmly believe that, us Twitter journalists ended up, creating a phenomenon that forced these mainstream media outlets to actually come in and cover it. So they had literally almost 2 weeks to do it. Where were they?
That's cool. What do you think is the future for that?
I think that it's something that's going to challenge the mainstream media, the corporate media, to focus on more of these stories that affect, everyday Americans. Right now, we don't see that. If this happened in the middle of Washington, D.C., you would see a different reaction from the mainstream media than what's happening right now. I don't even think the government would have allowed this to happen in the middle of Washington, D.C. So, hopefully we can pressure these guys enough to cover the stories that matter and what affect everyday Americans.